All right, everybody, this is Chris Brooks, the Gridiron Show, our Friday night scoreboard show. We'll be here about 20 minutes, go through these scores, the playoff roundup, kind of where everybody is at the present moment. Where I went tonight, got a new hat. Got to get into that. Good show for you tonight. All right, you can actually help me if you don't mind. I just sat down, I've been kind of running, and I'm just pulling everything up here on my computer. If you have any scores, any top performers that you want me to be sure to get on the air, you can participate on the show. And I'll show you how to do that here in just a minute. And again, like I said, I'm doing this on the fly. I'm trying to create some of this as we go. If you comment on Facebook or on X, or YouTube for that matter, it will show up here on the screen. I'm pulling that up right now so you guys will see it. And bam, there that is. Your messages will show up on the screen. I'll try to get to them as we go along with the show. But I want to get to some of the biggest scores from tonight, give you an idea of where everybody's headed into next week as far as all the jockeying for playoff position. And look, not just that, like playoffs start next week for a lot of schools. So this isn't just schools that are still jockeying for position. These are schools that are actually playing playoff games next week. A lot of the state. You're talking classes 1A through 4A for the public schools, and 5, 6, 7 still has one more week of regular season action to go. The academies, for the most part, will be all in action except for the very top of their class 4A. But we'll get into all of that here in just a minute. We're brought to you by Capital Ortho, capitalortho.com. Not rocking the hat tonight, but I'll get into that just for a minute. I just got this hat this week. I'll tell you why I'm wearing it. Oh, sorry, excuse me. Not supposed to do that on the air, but I don't know what my deal is. Just drinking all this carbonation tonight. Been running, like I said, all night. Brought to you by Soundcom, soundcomav.com, and Malone Roofing Services, ecmalone.com, by The Rogue in Jackson. My friend Luke Abney does his best to try to make me look good. It's very difficult. That is a very difficult task, but he tries his best. And also brought to you by Country Pleasing Sausage, Country Meat Packers in Florence. My friend Henry Cooper down there. Appreciate all that Henry does for us with these broadcasts, with our coverage of high school sports. A couple of things here in the next week or two that I'll finally be able to get around to announcing. Some things I'm excited about in terms of our high school coverage. Honestly, just some awesome stuff. But that's not for tonight. Let's dive into this. Again, if you have scores you want me to get into or top performers, we're a little bit later than normal tonight. I do this show live. However, I'm basically recording a podcast here because the majority of people are going to see this in the morning. We will try to get to the roundup as quickly as we can and give the people some scores and an idea of what's going on around the state. Now, having said all of that, some of the scores from around the state tonight, I went to Northwest Rankin was hosting Oak Grove. Big win for Oak Grove. They score on a last-second field goal to win that one 37-34. That's big for them just in terms, and those aren't necessarily the biggest games of the night, but in terms of the seeding, the playoffs, and all of those things, those are big games. Brandon got a big win tonight over Pearl. I watched that one. That was a crazy game. Brandon wins on a last-second touchdown by Tyson Robinson. They win 17-10 over Pearl in the Rankin County Super Bowl. This comes in from, appreciate you, Bradley. South Panola Stakes height 41-7 over Olive Branch. South Panola didn't crack our top 25 this week, our power rankings, but they're playing really good football. Could South Panola do something this year and get back where they were as one of the dominant programs around the state? Coach Brooks Oakley doing a good job there, and they could because they are playing really good football. Big win last week, another big win tonight over Olive Branch. Quick note on the top 25 that I put out. Brandon Shields and myself, I'll put out a Mississippi Gridiron top 10 and a little 10. and an MAIS top 10. And that's more traditional, where we're looking at records. And look, if you've done rankings like that before, you're basically moving teams up and down, and to drop out, you got to lose for the most part. This power ranking thing I'm doing is completely different. Trying to identify just, hey, who do I think would win games? And yeah, that does end up being heavily weighted towards the bigger schools. Um, but about half of that ranking is just a metric on a computer. So just understand, if you're playing a really weak opponent one particular week and you're one of these smaller schools, it hurts the computer number. That's why teams are moving up and down. And I did add the rule this week, this late in the year, even if you're a 7A school, you got to have a winning record. Can't be 4-4. For instance, Madison Central dropped out because they dropped to 4-4. They pick up a big win tonight against Starkville, 5-4. They'll move back in there, probably in the middle somewhere. But these smaller schools that are having big seasons, they're starting to find their way onto that ranking. And honestly, I think they're deserving. But if your strength of schedule is really weak, just in the computer numbers, that's not a me issue. It's just kind of what the numbers are spitting out. Doesn't mean your team's not great. Lanier's a great example. Lanier plays a schedule just analytically that the numbers are weak. I've seen that team. I watched them beat Holmes County at Hughes Field a couple weeks ago. Lanier is really good. And what Tommy Kelly's done there is an awesome thing. It's a big deal. He's done an awesome job for that program. That's a good football team. I haven't seen their score from the night, but I'm anxious to see what they did against Cleveland Central. So let me tell you what. There's 1,000 things I could get to doing this show like this. And if I sit and ramble, we'll be here all night. I want to see if I can find what Lanier and Cleveland did real quick here. That final, wow, Cleveland Central picks up a big win, 22-12 over Lanier. The computer numbers this week actually had Cleveland Central as a 3-point favorite, at least the numbers I look at. It had them projected as a 3-point favorite over Lanier. That's a big win for them, because I do think that Lanier team is good. There's a couple of 10th grade kids on that team too that are really big time players. You'll hear about them more in the next year or two. Now back to these top 10 teams, and then some of these messages that are coming through here already. Yeah, Thomas. Yeah, it's just hard. A 4-5 loss team. I was trying to figure out a way, because if you just look at the computer numbers, those teams are going to be up there because their schedule strength is so strong. And even seeing these teams, it's very difficult to try to compare schools that they're playing on completely different levels of competition. It's very difficult to do that. I can't just reward the record. I'm trying to actually pay attention to who they're playing, who they're losing to, which matters. Try to find some common opponents in there if you can. But I thought of making them have at least a winning record, that cleaned it up a little bit, at least on my end. Columbia going with the 4A championship. They did good last night. Columbia, 4A is going to roll through those guys. I've had a chance to see them play early this year, and they're a handful. Germantown wins big. I'm going to go through these messages first tonight. Then I'm going to go through these top 10 teams and the scores. So basically, we'll do a Q&A here to get started. Germantown wins big 47-17. That's from Eddie. And MC won against Starkville. What's the best we can place for Germantown in seeding if Starkville beats Oxford next week and Germantown beats Starkville? Some of this, Eddie, I'm going to have to dive into the scenarios after the show. I just haven't had a chance to see all of it. What I can tell you is I'm pulling up the standings on the computer here right now. And coming into tonight, the way this thing is going to shake out up there, and plus this will take up the whole show if I really try to break these down. I'll try to have that available with Brandon in the morning. But the way Region 2 is playing out, Oxford moves to 4-0 this week. Starkville losing, that puts them at 2-2. Germantown now 3-1. Madison Central gets their second win. So I'm guessing you're asking, let me go back and look at it real quick here. If Starkville beat Oxford, I can't remember y'all's game. Y'all lost to Oxford. I'm assuming that would still be a head-to-head. Oxford sewed up the one. And in all likelihood, you guys are going to be the 2. But again, let me thinking on the fly. See, plus you put me on the spot here, man. You're going to make me look bad. The brain is mush at this time at night. I'll put out all the scenarios and stuff in the morning. What I would say about that, though, Germantown's playing as well as anybody right now. They could do something. And the 7A teams, this is North and South. They even include Tupelo in this. There's not much difference. So in years past, there was an overwhelming favorite. I think things are wide open in 7A. I think Warren Central wins 6A. Like Warren Central's going to have a really good shot. Picayune's going to have a really good shot. Never miss. Okay, I got that. I think we're caught up on that. League Central won the school's first ever region championship Thursday over Northeast Lauderdale. Man, let me tell y'all something. League Central has a really good quarterback that's put up numbers this year, and they've had a great year. They are a team that could do something. Columbia plays most points next week. Most point next week, I believe. Louisville, I still think they're not the team to beat, but out of the North, that's still the team that you're looking at up there. I know this. There's teams that you don't count against. West Point being one, and what Louisville has been able to do the last several years, you don't count them out. Now, let me get to some of these scores real quick, and then I'll go back to messages if we have any. Your top 10 teams around the state, West Point beat New Hope big. West Point fans, the reason you weren't in the top 10 games to watch, and this is all due respect to New Hope, I'm going down the games that are big games, but also look like they're going to be close. New Hope's had a great year, great program, but the West Point team this year, you were still a 3 touchdown favorite in that game tonight, and West Point won big. I think the last time I saw it was maybe 35-0. I know New Hope got on the board, but they win big. Tupelo had a big win over Lewisburg, and some of these I'm not going to go back and find all of the scores, but I know that they won big in theirs. Picayune gets the win over Gaucher. I believe that was a comfortable win. And like I said earlier, I still think Picayune has a shot at it again this year. It's not one of their, the record is high. It's not one of the best team they've had, 34-31. So Gaucher put up a game tonight. Gulfport beats D'Iberville tonight, 38-35. We'll get to that here in just a minute. Not Picayune's strongest team, but still it's kind of the ho-hum Picayune team that you're going to get in the playoffs. They're not going to beat themselves. They're going to run the mess out of it. They're going to be really physical, and somebody will have to beat them. And you get in the playoffs, that's difficult to do. They're always a team you circle before you start the playoffs, and that's a solid top 5 team in the state again. Who else do I want to get to here? So Picayune picks up a big one. Oxford big last night over Murrah. Their quarterback situation, I'm not sure who their guy is the rest of the year. Knox Kiffin has been the guy the last few weeks with Dean going down with an injury. I'm not sure if that's a permanent thing or if this is a deal where the injury is the issue. I just know they have 2 really good young quarterbacks. Kiffin's a sophomore, seen him twice now. It's typical sophomore. Those kids are young. And we try to compare them to, second, third year college guys. That kid has a lot of potential. He can play. Dean's the same thing. A year older, a little more mature. That's a college kid one day. So Oxford's sitting there with 2 guys. It'll be interesting who's their guy the rest of the season. And I don't have any inside knowledge on that one. I just know Kiffin's played really well. Dean had played well up until the point he got hurt. Ocean Springs tonight over Harrison Central. I saw that one come across earlier, and like I've got several tabs open here. But Ocean Springs was a big winner tonight in their game. Next here we got Columbia. Now that had the potential to be big tonight. And honestly, I haven't even seen that score. I'm going back and forth on the computer screens here. Let me see what we have here. The Columbia and the Poplarville. Columbia 49-28. They end up taking the region 4A, not 4A, Region 7 in 4A title 49-28. Poplarville's good too. You're talking about one of the South's best running backs. Defensively, they're good, but man, that Columbia team this year, just top to bottom, they didn't have anybody when I saw them that just wowed you. And what I mean by that, not like a top 5 player in the state, not one of these huge 5-star recruit guys. They have some big time college guys on that roster. I'm not saying they don't, but collectively, like top to bottom, that team was really deep the night I had a chance to see them play Hartfield. They're going to be difficult for somebody to knock out. Gulfport, they get the close win over D'Iberville, not D'Iberville. Who did they knock out tonight? Was it? It was D'Iberville. Was that? Did I say 38-35 earlier? Gulfport ends up your Region 4 7A champ. So shout out to those guys. Coach Pinnock, Blake Pinnock, what he's done with that program. 38-35 it was. That's right. D'Iberville tonight. That was 2 ranked teams. Gulfport, I think, was 8. D'Iberville had it 11. Gulfport's tailback, Cooper Crosby, people need to circle his name, in your programs. He's a kid that I'm hearing his name more in college circles. And he could very well end up an SEC running back. If I had to pick right now, I think he will. And that happens all the time. Kids go through the cracks. Nobody's offered. And then when one school gives a big offer, then everybody starts offering. It's just the way it goes a lot with the colleges. So D'Iberville falls to Gulfport. Warren Central, they keep advancing. They're winners over Callaway, and then Germantown sitting at number 10. They win big at Clinton. And then we'll get to these messages here in a second. MRA big with Simpson Academy. That score was close, 33-12 or something along those lines. But with these big 4 academies, especially MRA, JA, Jackson Prep, Hartfield, the teams that they're playing, outside of those 4 are really they're in a class their own. That's just kind of the makeup of the MAIS right now. Those 4 schools have just elevated themselves to a point. It's hard for people to play with them. Park Lane being the only one. They picked up a win against Jackson Prep early this year. That'd be a harder game to win. Even the Park Lane, for their class, Park Lane's great. What Coach Rushing's done with that program. But a lot of these big academy schools in the Big 4 kind of coasting through the end of this year until they see each other in the playoffs. So MRA is the big winner tonight over Simpson. What's this Jackson Academy score going to be? They end up beating Pillow 42-7. And I'm going to look at Carter Mansfield. Appreciate you, dude. He's on X. Some of these scores I want to go through. Germantown ends up winning 47-17 over Clinton. JA beats Pillow 42-7. MRA and Simpson, it was 35. I think I said 33. 35-12. Madison Central ends up winning late over Starkville 38-35. That's a huge win for them. Madison Central, without digging deep into it, I mean, they were on the cusp of, you can miss the playoffs. And that was a big win for them. And maybe they had that locked up. I'd have to go back and look because I'd have to see where Clinton was sitting. But that's a big win for Madison Central after a gut punch last week at Germantown in a game that was close. But all of these 7A schools, seems like they're winning by less than a touchdown or losing by less than a touchdown. Ridgeland gets a big win over Neshoba Central, 43-37. Canton, 49-28 over Greenville. See if there's anything else ranked in here. Jackson Prep, 38-13 over Oak Forest. And Jackson Prep is playing much better football. I would pay attention to them in the playoffs. MRA is the overwhelming favorite in your MAIS 4A playoffs in that very top level. but Jackson Prep could knock somebody off. They're playing much better football. Let's see what else we have here before we sign off. We're at the 20-minute mark. If you have a score you want me to comment on, that I'm not gonna have time to go through the whole thing. Like I said, I didn't roll in here till a little bit late anyway. What do we have here? A couple other ones. Hattiesburg, I'm definitely going to get to that one. Hattiesburg beats West Jones tonight. I'm not looking at that score in front of me, but I know they won that game convincing. I saw Hattiesburg a couple weeks ago. Tristan Keys didn't play the first month of the year due to injury. He's back. Their quarterback is playing lights out. That team had complete overhaul in the offseason. New coach, new starters for in a lot of places. They had a big senior class that graduated. So that's a big one for them to beat West Jones tonight. And that's a team you're looking at in the playoffs. Could they do something? Yeah, of course they could. They got to the state championship game last year. Wasn't able to finish at Grenada. Got the state championship win. South Jones got back on track tonight, 17-0 over Natchez. Look, South Jones was undefeated going into last week, and this happens. They lost a game to a North Pike team, and I don't know anything about North Pike this year. Just know that their record was really bad. I'm going to guess a game in which you overlook it, but they get back on track with a big win. Laurel and South Jones for the Region 3. How about that? The 2 seed. Laurel's a team that their record's bad, but I know what Ryan Ernest does. His schedule in the non-region is just ridiculously difficult. And not that you ever expect to lose those games, but if you don't have a great team and you're playing up a lot, you could start off with a lot of losses. But usually you get in the region, it pays off. And for Laurel, that's happening again. They beat Summerall tonight 14-10. Who else? 41-20 was that final. Appreciate you, Caleb. Davion Young is the quarterback for Hattiesburg. 4 touchdowns. He had a big game last week, threw for 4 something. And that's a kid, I believe he transferred in from out of state right before the season started. So, I'm not shocked to see him doing well because he was kind of a big deal that came in there. All right, we got to the top 10 for the publics and the academies. And sitting here doing this live, I would go through some of these scenarios. That's going to be so boring. It's not even worth your time or mine, to be honest. So we're going to hold off. I'm going to put that out in the morning. Oh, thank you. Yeah, Davion Young was the receiver that had Gavin Ducksworth's quarterback. Look, when I'm doing team of the week last week, or this week rather, when I'm going through the numbers, actually Tristan was going to be the wide receiver. And then as I go a little further, I see Davion Young is actually the one that had the bigger night, even though Tristan had a huge night. But Davion Young has a huge one. Didn't even have a picture of him somehow. I usually snap photos of as many kids as I can when I go to a game, just for still shots. And they were playing, I believe, Jim Hill the night I saw him. But I didn't get anything of him. But he made our team of the week. Yeah, Gavin Ducksworth was the quarterback. Appreciate you, man. Let's see if I have anything else here. I don't want to do any college stuff. If I do anything, I might do that in the morning. I'll tell you what I will do. I've started doing this top 25 a couple weeks ago. We'll ride that out, and I'm going to do that through the playoffs just because I think it'll be fun to do it. So we will do the power rankings all the way through this thing. I will look at the scenarios tonight. I will have the playoff brackets already done. I mean, I know Brandon's working on that. He goes up to the MHSAA offices at the end of the year. So he's probably there now doing some of this. And all of that will be out late tonight, early morning. And then for 5A, 6A, 7A public, we will have some scenarios that are out there. But that'll give me a chance to digest some of this, go through some photos, and not waste your guys' time tonight by just hemming and hawing through this thing. Now, real quick, Miko Oak Grove, I got 37-34. Miko officiating MHSA horrendous, absolutely ridiculous. MHSA got to do a better job training these officials. Let me give you a comment on the officials. I try to be fair to them. I'm not going to just speak off the cuff, okay, about officiating for this reason. It's, man, officiating is hard. I've been in those meetings. Like I sat and talked to Ricky this week. Ricky Neves, Johnny Mims, had a chance to go visit with them earlier this week. That's the one thing we talked about. Officiating's hard. It's very difficult to find people willing to do it now, to be honest. And social media plays a huge part in that. And this isn't some of the officiating, I'm not explaining away with this, but I'm just saying, in my experience with this, coaches, parents, everybody, we have an expectation that the officiating is to the level of officiating that we're watching on television. Look, and we're complaining about the SEC and the NFL, okay? People kind of have an expectation that that's what it looks like on TV. When you drop to high school, look, you've gone from NFL to college to lower college. Now we're at a high school level of play. The officiating in large part reflects the competition level, high school and college. High school officials aren't college. So that is part of it. But the other part, it is very difficult to get officials to do games this minute just because of social media and what that's turned into. So I'm always going to be cautious, not torching them because it's already hard enough to even find them, which I know Miko puts that in there just because he wants good officials. And I'm telling y'all, that's going to be difficult to get enough quality people to improve it. But it doesn't, if I get up here and I just torch it, I'm not helping the situation. But we have to figure out something that we can have more. And look, one reason we split these games up, had games last night, excuse me, games last night, games tonight. They do it to split the officiating up so you can have your better officials at more of the big games, but still, I say all that. I know what you're talking about because I saw some of that Northwest ranking game. And often in those games, I'll see a play that happened. And keep in mind, go into those games, know that some of the calls are going to be bad. And you're hoping that you're not going to get the bag knot. But it's pretty obvious something hasn't been seen. Everybody's huddling. And in an honest moment, it's almost like, hey, whichever coach makes the most compelling argument, that's the direction we're going to go. So Northwest Rankin had one of those nights tonight, and it ended up hurting them. But I'm on those sidelines, and I can hear coaches and people on the sidelines, and they're sure what they saw happen. They don't know what happened. They kind of have an idea, but when you're on the sideline, part of your job is you're trying to get calls. 100% what they're doing. You're trying to get a call, and then it's obvious an official didn't see it, and they're just trying to make the best decision they possibly can. And I like I said, often I think that's the most compelling argument that somebody just made. What else do we have here? BM, appreciate that. Roger, honestly think the biggest issue of not knowing the rules is what has baffled me the most. I think I saw that 2 times tonight. But again, these people doing this part-time, and it's been difficult. Every year I've done this, now 16 years, it's harder and harder and harder and harder to get officials. I'm telling it is not an MHSAA issue with training people or a coaches association or whoever's over it. You can chalk a lot of this up to social media and the difficulties to get those people to want to call those games. That's just the reality of it. Yeah, the pay is not worth the headache. Look, and this is coming from me, somebody that's on the sidelines, and we got off on a tangent here. But I've heard some of those conversations, coaches, the officials, and that's one thing. But a lot of the parents to the officials and afterwards, and I hear some of the stories, when we do have incidents, and it's unfortunate. So those guys, the ones I know, put up with a whole lot of headaches because they just enjoy being out there. But I get the point you guys are both making. Is a foot in the end zone on a kickoff and automatic touchback. Ben, I don't know anymore because I would swear at games I thought that was still the rule this year. And I think I know I've been to games that it was the rule, but I've seen it this week. I'm guessing it's not the rule because I've seen guys take it with a foot in and they come out of it. So honestly, that's something that came up last night. I'm not sure. Yeah, JT South Panola, we got into them. I'll have more on all of this in the morning. 41-7 winners over Olive Branch tonight. So big time win for South Panola. The winners tonight, if I had to pick out a couple of teams, I mean, West Point, they steamrolled New Hope. That's a big win for Brandon tonight. You know, everybody knows their issues this year, but losing to Pearl tonight would have been crushing. Those two programs don't like each other. Only thing I'll say about that game, I watched some of it second half. There's too much jawing. Teams are too loose, and I know they want to fight, but they had a lot of flags in that game. There could have been a lot more flags in that game. And I know, man, that of all the games I see, I think those kids dislike each other the most. I mean that sincerely because, like, even that game, there's kids in that game I know are awesome kids, and they talked so much tonight. It caught me off guard. A couple of them. One in particular, towards the end of the game, did something. Not going to say which team. It was both. I'm talking about both teams, and I couldn't remember the kid's name. Who's that? Who's that number? I pulled it up, and it's one I know, and the kid's awesome. He really is. I was surprised it was him that did what I was looking at. But man, those two programs, they don't like each other. And if you were at that game tonight, it was I mean, it was another one of those. What else we have here? I think that's going to do it, guys. Germantown is rolling at the moment. Teams that are hot. Germantown's one. But let me tell y'all something. And I mean this especially 7A, 6A, 5A. Good luck with West Point. There's other good teams, but good luck with them. 7A, Tupelo is a notch above, but man, there are. If I leave somebody out, I apologize. Those of you that are tuning in, appreciate you listening this long. 7A teams that I would not be shocked, maybe if they not to win it, let's say they get there to a state championship. Tupelo up there in the north, Oxford, Germantown. Look, and I'm telling you, I would go with Starkville. I would go with your Madison Central. Would not be shocked at those five. And then you come down south, we're talking Ocean Springs and Gulfport on the coast, Petal, Oak Grove. Look, even though they haven't played well, and tonight I didn't think they looked very disciplined. I think that's been an issue for them this year, to be honest. That's five teams down there. I think Northwest Rankin is talented, and I've seen them lose some just brutal games. That game tonight, that's tough, man. The way they lost that one, that was difficult. But Northwest Rankin, if they get that 4 spot, unless Pearl upsets Oak Grove next week, I think we're probably looking at in the South, Petal, Oak Grove, Brandon, Northwest Rankin. If it's Gulfport 1, they are the one, not an if. You don't, Northwest Rankin would not be my favorite matchup in round 1 because I've seen them play with teams all year and they've lost several of those games, but like tight, late in fourth quarter losses. Have big time wide receiver, big time running back, Germany Hayden. Like they could do something. If you face Brandon, let's say they're a low seed, Tyson Robinson could do something on his own one night. Maybe they figure things out and they're a little better offensively in the playoffs. But you're talking about maybe 10 to 12 teams that could do something. That's a lot of fun. There's kids in the game that are cousins that would get, hey, Miko, look, man, that game tonight, I wasn't there in person. And I'm keeping this Metro a lot of it, but I'm watching it. Okay, man, they jawed, and not just tackles, big blocks. Okay, knock a guy down immediately. Almost every one of them, you're like you make the block, and then there's talking and standing over the kid like the entire second half, and not just a kid or two, like on the whole field. But I've been at that game on many occasions, and I only mean this half-heartedly. It looks like the kids would rather fight than play. They don't like each other, and there's other rivalries like that. It's just that one in particular, just from being on the sidelines for it. I mean, like this close, they'd rather fight than play. And coaches, I think, do a good job in general keeping them from boiling over to where it becomes just a fight and not play. But yeah, they don't like each other a whole lot. Last thing on the college level, games I'm going to watch tomorrow. Of course, I'm going to watch Ole Miss play against South Carolina. My kids over there watching it. I did want to get to this too. This hat, this is worn by the Miss Al coaches, the Mississippi Alabama coaches, obviously the Mississippi side. I've been after Johnny Mims to get one of these hats. This basically, as far as I'm concerned, this makes me a coach in the Miss Al game. It's taken a couple years, but I finally got this thing done. Love the hat. Appreciate Johnny doing that for me. If y'all don't know him, Johnny's an awesome guy. Marcus Evans, anyone that wants to make high school fishing better, join the local association. They start meeting in July of every year, be a part of the solution. Hey, look, appreciate you saying that, Marcus. If you guys want officiating to be better, and I'm not picking on Roger, Miko, being anybody in here. I promise that's not the point here. Because it's not just you guys. I hear this more than any other complaint about high schools is officials. And I understand it. If you want it to be better, people that are getting older or you have time on your hands and you are former players, they are looking for people to officiate games, to train, to educate, to get them in games, to officiate them. If you got time, you want to do it, there's decent pay to do it. Just got to have some thick skin. That's the solution. And that's just the honest truth. If you want it to be better, what Marcus said is that's the solution. Be part of it. SEC games tomorrow. I'm not doing the top 25. I don't care. Ole Miss, South Carolina, Vandy, Texas. How about Vanderbilt? Georgia, Florida, Mississippi State, Arkansas. Hey, a quick thought on Mississippi State. Man, we're going way too long today, but I guess it doesn't matter. On Instagram, though, I'm about to cut all this out because you can only put 30 minutes up there. I am not a fire levy guy. I was looking up numbers this week. Mississippi State scoring margin, they've improved more than any team in the SEC this year, from last year to this year. Collectively, offensive, defense, just scoring margin. No team has improved more than State. And it's noticeable. They couldn't even stay on the field last year with these teams. I mean, couldn't stay on the field. And they've lost some brutal games. And I know the 0 for streak in the SEC. I just think you got to look a little deeper than that. You give him another year and see what happens when he comes back next year. I'm not going to, if I said he did a great job, I know I'd get killed for that. Just saying that team has improved as much as anybody, but they were so far behind. They're still over in the SEC. I say all that to say, I hope they get Arkansas tomorrow. They deserve a win. I say their players deserve an SEC win here because they've been close. They had it last week. I still can't believe they lost that game. Oklahoma plays Tennessee and Kentucky Auburn. But it's a huge win for a huge game for Ole Miss if they can win it. I mean, the playoffs are right there for them if they can just finish this thing. Who knows what Lane Kiffin does? I will say this. I think he'd be crazy to leave that job. Just knowing the particulars, I think the Ole Miss job is a big reason he's finally had success. The guy's great. Offensively, he's great. He's a different personality. I think he's found a good fit. He has good support, good leadership. They let him be himself. And every place isn't going to do that. And I know a lot of these old head national people are looking at these jobs and they're trying to rank them. I'm just telling you guys, I talk to a lot of these kids that are signing and these coaches. All those things they're talking about does not matter. Like, this is not what it was. This applies to Mississippi State too, or any team that wants to move up. If you have money for players, that's 1A, 1B, 1C. What am I going to make? And then what are my opportunities to get on the field? By far, those are the two questions kids that want answers to. above anything else about my brand. And I know fans all think their brand is the greatest. Kids don't care for the most part. Some love a school, but I'm just telling y'all, with the money and you're flashing that in front of those kids, it's amazing how quickly they forget about the fandom. What's the pay going to be? And what are my opportunities to get on the field quickly? That's 1A, 1B. And then all those other things still matter. Like the area you recruit from, just some of traditional blue blood stuff. Yeah, it matters. It doesn't matter at all like it used to. And look, I can make this argument. And now really getting deep here. I mean, in the weeds. Places like an Ole Miss or a State, if they can get back, which at some point they will, those fans have a more realistic view of where things are. And some of these schools that are used to the way things have been, they are not realistic. That goes from the fans to the administration on down. It's one reason they keep firing coaches that are winning. And the LSU thing's crazy. The Florida thing, the way they've cycled through coaches, that's been crazy. At some point, it's not the coach's fault. You've got some dysfunction in your program. And I'll finish with this. Some of these schools don't have the money you think they do. I've heard some stories that could back that up, and not going to get into that, how I would know, because you really don't know much on some of these. But what's happening in Louisiana while the governor's all up in arms, some of these places, you can't just find $50 million just laying around. Some of these places, the financial part is becoming a strain. Wouldn't be shocked if you see some states and schools come out here in the next few years to say, yeah, this isn't working because we're in a bad spot. Ole Miss this minute isn't in that spot. They're one of these schools with money, but that could change. You know, somebody's tired of giving money to it. That changes because these aren't necessarily business models where the money's rolling in. You're asking for people to keep feeding this thing, and it changes. But the pecking order has definitely changed. It's just the media has been very slow to change with it. All right, guys. I think that's going to do it for tonight. Hey, look, in the morning, I'll put out something about where the playoffs stand, maybe some graphics in terms of the playoffs. Got to get to these photos. Have some news I'm going to put out next week. I'll need some help from y'all if you don't mind, and promoting what I'm doing. But I always appreciate you checking out the show. Thanks to Capital Ortho, to Country Pleasing, Country Meat Packers down in Florence, Soundcom, to Malone Roofing Services, and to the Rogue. Always appreciate those guys. Y'all have a good night. Enjoy your Saturday. I'll talk to you soon. Okay. God bless.